Hello, and welcome to the channel where we talk everything AI. I'm Pete Weir.
And I'm John Prideaux.
This week, I think we need to look at where AI is going because we've had some great fun using some of these tools,
Yep.
but maybe AI is not as good as we thought. I think we need to look into it further, John. So let's cover it in this episode of AI. So, John, I've been noticing quite a few articles in the press at the moment that are being quite negative towards AI. So I'm wondering if we should be a little worried. Are we focusing on the right thing?
I'd like to know. Let's find out.
First of all, a bit of Gartner background. I'm sure everybody's heard of the hype curve, but let's just look at where AI is according to Gartner on the hype curve. This is all the things Gartner think are AI.
It's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it?
Yes, it is a bit of a roller coaster ride.
It feels like we might be just at that moment at the top, just before you go over and you see the depths before you. We may be at that moment.
A peak of inflated expectation.
That's what it feels like to me.
It does feel a little bit like that. But interestingly, that's where generative AI is. Generative AI is what we've been using in terms of image generation, animation, chat GPT. All these are in that category of generative AI. Yeah, I found a few articles recently. One of them was interesting around investment. The big techs, they've pumped a load of money into AI, and now the city's getting very nervous. And you know what it's like when the city gets nervous.
Yeah. I saw a quote from the CEO of Google, and it was something along the lines of, oh, well, it's better to overinvest now than underinvest and be left behind. I'm sure that really calmed them down.
That didn't really help, did it? Their share prices look like they've dropped 10% from 10th of July. That's less than a month.
I know.
And a lot of the billions of investment that's gone in now, the city's getting concerned. Is this investment going to pay off?
Yep. OpenAI predicted to make further losses, big ones.
Oh, really?
Microsoft, their share price dropped just because they didn't meet their cloud service targets by like 2%. So there's definitely some nervousness out there about this particular generative AI area.
This feels like top of that curve, peak of inflated expectations, and we're at the top of that roller coaster, about to go over the edge, and we're all getting a bit nervous. Some of us don't like roller coasters. This is the point where you're going to get a bit scared. And then we're getting people from Goldman Sachs and the Wall Street Bank here saying, is this investment ever going to pay off? I mean, look at the size of these investments, $1 trillion.
It's just unbelievable.
Are we in reality?
If you add up all the investments made across all of these companies, it just doesn't make sense. The global economies simply haven't got the wealth within them to give it all back.
There wouldn't be enough money.
But I guess there'll be winners and losers. Some people will come off really well and others will fall by the wayside.
Here's an interesting one I came across. People are continuing to experiment with AI because we're sort of in that experimental mode, testing things out. And there seems to be a huge influx of AI generated recipe books. They're having some of the issues we've had with some of our experiments. You think it's doing well, and then suddenly it does something off the wall. Joanne Lee Molinaro, who's a Korean vegan author, noticed that one of her books was copied, but it was copied by AI. So someone had gone into ChatGPT or something similar and generated a recipe book. Unfortunately, the vegan cookbook had eggs, dairy, one recipe had chicken in it. Obviously, someone didn't read the book before they published it. And this article, a guy was trying to follow the recipes in an AI-generated book. And I quote, he said, the Japanese hot pot he attempted is one of the most disgusting meals he's ever eaten. So the groups of things it put together just didn't taste good. The other thing you notice is like 99% of the recipes in the book were for mojitos.
It's these biases, isn't it? It's AI biases at play.
Yeah. And they all were derived from the same recipe.
Very interesting.
Now, the recipe apparently is copyright, but the ingredients, the way you talk about the ingredients is not. So it just basically juggled around the way it talks about the ingredients and the order of the ingredients, which made it a non-copyright recipe.
Right. It seems odd, really, because if you want a recipe, you just Google a recipe and you find it. I hardly ever open a recipe book these days. So why do you even need AI to generate a recipe book for you?
BBC Good Food always comes up on that Google, doesn't it?
I think it's one of these situations where someone said, AI could do this, so let's get it to do it without thinking about whether you actually need it or not.
Should it be done? Not could it be done?
Yeah.
Reminds me of Cats the movie. This was an interesting one. These recipe books were replaced "and" with an ampersand, which would be a sensible thing to do, but you end up getting that strange phrase "handful of coriander"
A hampersand full of Corrie Hampersander.
or "blend by hand." And we know all the struggles AI has with hands, don't we, John? With your image generation.
We certainly do, Pete. We certainly do.
So, some interesting experiments other people are doing, some nervousness around investment. What's to do? Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it's not the place to be.
Well, I think these big tech companies, the only thing they can do is invest big.
Yeah.
Smaller companies that have a more targeted market and targeted issues can use AI much more effectively.
Makes sense.
And maybe they can exploit what's being given away at the moment to build the markets. So now's a good time to jump in and make the most of all the freebies out there.
Yeah. And I noticed in another article I've read recently that most of the rewards of using AI are coming from the ground up. It's not the big ticket items, the big change that's bringing in new platforms. It's people who've worked out a piece of process that could be used using AI tools like Microsoft Copilot to work more efficiently in one piece of their process.
Yep.
It's not that sexy, but actually it's saving people time and saving people effort and improving process steps,
Yep.
which is great for business.
Yeah, I think one thing we've learned, Pete, even though it's been fun looking at these creative tools, they do have something in common, that if you're quite targeted and specific about what you ask for or what you're trying to create, can be quite good and helpful. As soon as it gets a little bit ambiguous, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, so that prompting again comes back, doesn't it? Getting those prompts really clear, understanding what you want AI to do and being very specific about that instruction you give it.
Exactly.
So these big guys, a lot of people say Nvidia, they've got rich by selling shovels in a gold rush.
Yes, selling the chips.
We always think of shovels in a gold rush. Dot-com boom was the same.
Yes.
Those chips are the shovels in our new gold rush, aren't they?
Exactly. I was surprised, therefore, to see Intel's price plummet the other day. They're axing 15,000 jobs, which sent a bit of a shockwave, and their share price fell by 26%.
Wow.
And they're a big chip maker.
And all these sort of things get everybody nervous around what's going on. What should I invest in? The best example of using AI I've seen recently is Klarna. So Klarna are a buy now, pay later provider. You might have seen them when you're buying your latest outfit, John, online, and they'll offer you pay it in 3 installments.
Well, you know how I like a party. I like to dress up.
So they've used an OpenAI powered assistant, and they're saying it's handling 2/3 of its customer service requests in the first month. That's 2.3 million conversations. That's incredible, really. And it's interesting because chatbots have not been a great success. I think most customers don't like using them.
No, they don't trust them, do they?
The experience isn't great, but I think AI can provide a much richer transactional experience. Maybe that's what Klarna have jumped on. They're saying it's doing equivalent work of 700 full-time agents. That's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
Their stats say that their customers get their problems resolved in 2 minutes compared to 11 minutes previously. So that's quite a significant customer benefit, I'd say.
It is. Raises another interesting point, because I think they've got a huge volume of conversations that they are dealing with, which is a great source of information. So in terms of training their AI models, they're very well placed and have an advantage over smaller companies who wouldn't get anywhere near those sorts of numbers.
Organizations are looking at ways to streamline their customer service and get better service to their customers without increasing the number of full-time agents they've got. So this potentially could be a solution to that.
If it really is a success and starts to catch on elsewhere, it does suggest that there will be more demand for computing power needed to support all of this. So maybe that investment that the likes of Google and Microsoft are making in their cloud services does have at least some revenue coming in the future. Whether it's enough to pay back their investment remains to be seen.
We've got to be careful, of course, because we know the other story about chatbots and DPD.
Yes.
It can go disastrously wrong as well as an incredible benefit to your customers. So caution is required. So how do you navigate this sort of stuff?
Well, I think you need to understand what your problems are, then look at all those different tools that are out there and get it to work. I'm sure it can. I feel quite confident and positive about the way that companies can deploy AI to help them solve their problems or improve their processes.
Even though we're heading down that hype curve, we've got to remember there's a lot of noise flying around at the moment. And actually, there's still great value you can get from it, as some people are seeing, but you've got to take a pragmatic approach.
You don't need to make the same kind of investments that the likes of Google and Microsoft are doing. You could let them do that and just use the features and the tools that are being made available to us.
And there's a great number of tools coming on the market now that we can start to look at. And they're getting lots of investment too, not in the trillions.
It's not in cloud cuckoo land.
Hedra, for example, has just got a $10 million investment. That's pretty impressive for a seed fund, isn't it?
And what does Hedra do?
We're actually using Hedra at the moment. So we are an output of Hedra. They're creating avatars, very realistic avatars, I'd say. Still very early days, but with that sort of investment, imagine what they could do with this technology. Synthesia, they're getting 150 million.
Yeah, they produce customized video content using avatars as well. So that seems to be a popular investment area at the moment.
Yeah. And Databricks, they've got 4 billion, John.
I know.
For AI platform. What's that about?
That is getting into a little bit of the eye-watering area. But interestingly, they provide a platform for AI, not solutions. Their service helps people who want to analyze vast amounts of data. They can do that for you.
There's lots of cash flying around and lots of things to play with by the look of it, but we still need to find that sweet spot of tools and techniques that will work for us.
I think there's a whole new episode there, Pete.
It seems like we need to carry on with this experimentation and perhaps take some of the results of our previous experiments, John, and look at some practical business applications. How can we use the learning we gain to solve small incremental problems?
So, Pete, I think we should continue with our experimentation, but not just focusing on the most common tools like OpenAI and Microsoft Copilot, but we should explore some of the more innovative platforms, things that are looking at more niche issues. I think it'll be very interesting, much more exciting.
That does sound good, John. Can't wait to see you on the next episode of AI.